And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And great to have a brand new guest stateside, and that is Rich J. Rich, thanks so much for your time today.
Peter, thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you. And we have um, maybe connected two or three times because your role, Chief Evangelist at GETTR, we'll expand on that a little bit, but obviously people can find you at, there is your handle. They can find it on GETTR. Make sure you're using it. We want to discuss, we'll start in your background and then get on to GETTR. And GETTR has kind of been stood the test of time, where some others have risen, fallen, and tried to rise again. Others have changed ownership. Getter kind of has continued that steady increase, and we certainly used it from right at the beginning, and still uses one of our main platforms to stream and to post on. But and of course the wonderful, the one and only Steve Bannon streams on Getter and in Rumble. So Getter is the only kind of social media side that you can catch War Room. So thank you for the War Room posse joining us. And we're going to delve a little bit deeper into Getter. But first, Rich, could I ask you a little bit about your personal story? Kind of what was your background that led to you getting involved in Getter?
Yeah, it's actually not as interesting as some may think because I think we all have similar stories here, especially when we talk about censorship and being on social media. So, a few years ago, I was a lot like many creators out there. I was shadow banned. I had my account locked several times on Twitter. At the time, I was helping to share information about preventive medicine around informed consent. You can imagine this was kind of during a pandemic period, and also just general alternative wellness, right? Eventually, Twitter itself or users who didn't agree with my content flagged me or tried to put me up for a ban. And so I ended up creating multiple accounts on Twitter and was locked out, subsequently mysteriously. I think everybody has kind of experienced that. Anybody with an opposing view to the mainstream. So any opportunity of like ad revenue vanished overnight. Same thing, similar things happened on Facebook as well. And so that's when I realized I wasn't just being silenced, I was being erased, essentially, right? It was quite frustrating. Later on, I'll tell you this. I don't think I told you this story before, Peter, but it was around the same time. It was early 2021. I was searching for platforms where free speech seemed to be. I came across Gab. Everybody knows Gab, right? But I really experienced the iron fist of big tech then. So when I registered for the account, obviously they send these two-factor codes to your email, and I found that with my Apple and my Google emails, I would never receive any of those authentication codes. But if I used my regular privacy-based email, your Proton mails, and so on and so forth, I was able to receive those codes. So Apple and Google selectively blocked my emails coming into my inbox. So you can imagine that, right? Your email provider scanning your emails for emails coming in from a specific domain, and then just blocking those emails from ever being able to be seen by you. So it was really then and there I decided this was the last straw, really, but I decided that big tech and Silicon Valley had too much control over our lives. And so that year, 2021, July 4th, coincidentally, right, Getter was launched, led by Jason Miller. And I quickly hopped on. I think you did as well, with my first truly censorship free social media account. So the rest is history. And so today I'm leading the effort to grow the reach of the Getter program.
So, mate, what's your and I've written an article and I'll put it in the description on Gateway Pundit, looking through the different platforms and why I think Getter rises above a lot of others for the functionality, for the ease of use, for the privacy, for having an app for it, and it goes on. And we'll touch on some of those. But what about your mission? Your desire, obviously, is to uh, widen Getter's reach, to make it more influential, to have more people on to for it to grow? Because obviously, a social media platform rises or falls on the amount of followers it has. I think Getter has continued that rise, where others, I think, have gone up and down, up and down. So, yeah, your mission personally with Getter.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting time. So with Getter, I think the investors have we've gone back to the drawing board in a lot of cases. But really, if you remember, those of you who are watching who joined us at the very beginning, we saw a lot of really good feature rollouts. We also saw the use of ads on Getter. But that is one thing where we came back to the drawing board as a team and we said, hey, you know what? Let's focus on what we do best, which is to put out a platform that really truly respects privacy and make sure that we're not selling ads, right? We're not using any of the users' data to produce additional revenues for us, and that's the main difference. I think if you look across the board, you won't find too many platforms out there that won't play an ad in between videos, right? Or that when you're scrolling down the feed, that you won't see something that says ad at the top corner. And so we're going to hold fast to that because I think that's a cornerstone of where we want to be as what people would call home for their audience. So that's the overarching plan for Getter, but everything else kind of falls in line under that. You know, the creator economy, the monetization features that are coming out this year, some of the AI assisted live translations, all of the stuff that we build is going to be built upon that principle of free speech.
I think that data thing is key when you look at X and being taken over by AIX or XAI or whatever. Do you realize that that is all about data and collecting? Now we are the data, and I think one of the things I've seen on Getter is the desire to do something differently, be me creator led as opposed to data led, which I think is does make it fairly distinctive. But how do you? I mean, there be people who we've used Getter and have used it continuously,
Mhm.
from back in the day. There may be other people who've used it and then haven't. You know, you try here and there, but so, those maybe you haven't signed up. How would you kind of describe Getter in maybe a sentence or the overview of it?
Yeah, so I think if you haven't used Getter before, you first I would say know the roots of the company, which is this is a place for global voices, and it's also a place where you can experience true censorship-free um, conditions for your audience, right? So that is the main underlying thing I want everybody to know. But then when you sign up for it, you'll see things that are specifically different. Now it is a social media platform, so some of the characteristics you see, the usage is there. However, you'll see things like, and you can also comment on this too, Peter, from your personal experiences. The live stream is built a bit differently for the people that are actually doing live streams. So we want to make sure, along with live streams and everything else we do, including the monetization aspects, including the future ways we built out segment specific features, and I'll give you some examples in a minute of those. We want all of that to be focused on creator, right? We want creators to feel like this is a place where you can be bold, you can express yourself, you can gain traction and be rewarded for good content without any of that algorithmic I want to say oppression, but I want to say algorithmic, what do you call it? Obstacles to getting your message out.
It is. It's annoying when big tech decides it knows best, and you're saying, "No, no, no. I think I know that on that area." So there is that battle, but because I think when you look at and obviously start being started by Jason Miller, you think, well, political figure, and now as someone who's been very influential in every Trump campaign, and now is in that inner circle, and kind of some of my background is politics. But I mean,
Mhm.
how does Getter maybe differ from other mainstream platforms? I guess each of them maybe have something that you think of when you go there. But it's obviously Getter is not just about politics, despite Steve Bannon being a key user and one of the top users. It's not just politics.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the reason why politics happens to be a cornerstone of a lot of these platforms is because politics is about getting a message out. You know, you want people to hear what your message is for campaigning. You want people to be engaged as an audience with kind of the things that you're doing as an elected official. So I think it's rather normal to see that to be kind of a driving force in a lot of these social media campaigns and also platforms. But I think for us, what we're trying to do here in 2025, as well as the next couple years, is you'll see us be very specific about um, addressing the needs of particular segments. So, to give you an example, like I mentioned before, the government segment or the elected official segment is very important to us because what our elected officials say has to be truth, right? It has to be unfiltered. It can't be downregulated on your feed. It has to be there and it has to be available to the constituents. So, what we plan on rolling out this year has a lot to do with supporting those voices in government, making sure that they are able to not only engage, but translate some of these engagements into donations and then eventually into votes to get them back into office or get them into office for the first time. So these are the things I think as you think about Getter as a platform is we want to focus on the creator. We want to be specific about particular segments that we serve. Another one would be the medical segment and informed consent. We may go down that route very soon as we look at how to make sure information about medicine, science, published papers, right, pre-published papers are freely available to people in very simple ways. And we can do that through AI and also featuring a lot of the creators, or I won't say creators, but I'll say experts, medical experts that want to help us interpret some of this data that's out there. So those are some examples I think that distinguish Getter from the usual social media platform is a specificity and also a focus on creators and making sure their voices are heard.
There's a quite we could probably compare notes on this next thought, but we'll do that offline maybe. I
Mhm.
remember my time with Getter in 2022, and it was exciting. I enjoyed it. I met so many phenomenal people, and just Jason Miller is someone who is very open with connections. Through Jason, I got to meet Steve and many others, and people like that are fairly rare. So I enjoyed that openness that he and certainly a great year back in 2022 being part of that. As you've come in more recently. We didn't know each other in 2022, so you've come in more recently. Kind of as you look at what Getter wants to do, maybe some of the things in the past, and then looking ahead, kind of what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's some really great things Getter has done, especially upon launch. You saw at the time, July 4th, 2021. That was really a dark, dark time for all of us because our voices in the largest platform where we could express, Twitter, were really quite filtered and quite suppressed. So that's why we saw a huge amount of growth just within the first couple months. I would say we had probably a million users onto the Getter platform just within weeks because we were trying to help people get their voices out, right? And so this is where we saw a lot of good engagement.
And
Creators
then
were,
remember the Joe Rogan there. Remember when Robert Malone on with
yeah,
Joe Rogan talking about it and his spike.
That's right, and because and this is a good point and a good example there, Peter, is people really care about having their voices heard in a very authentic way, right? We don't want to see accounts, and we see this all the time as people come back to us and say, "Do you know what this thing is? This thing called shadow banning, and is it actually happening?" Well, we know it's actually happening because we can compare, right? You can do some tests to see how your posts are doing. At Getter, it's a little bit different because we haven't actually built out any algorithm that suppresses any particular account. In fact, we like to say that there are no algorithms to shadow ban any accounts at Getter. So if that's the kind of environment you want to build your platform, build your voice, build your community in, I think Getter has a place for you here.
Yeah, there's all different things, and one of the parts I like about Getter is the analytics. There are actually few platforms that give that level of analytics, and that's helpful if you're producing content. So that's just another thought through it. But what have you learned jumping in to
Mhm.
the social media treadmill, the 24-hour non-stop, and I don't think anyone really you can be a creator, you begin to understand, then when you begin to work for a company like that, you really begin to understand. But what have you learned about, I guess, online behavior and community from being involved with Getter?
Yeah, that's a great one because I think what people don't realize is it's easy to say, "Hey, I want to open up my phone and just go straight to X and post stuff or see engagement in my content." What people don't realize, I think, is engagement actually is a very customized a thing. It's a very personalized thing for everybody in every segment, every sector. So what how people engage and what's important to people in, say, medicine. People are inclined to read medical content. Like my background, I actually my background out of college was in biology and in immunology. So I tend to look at things that are posted, on a feed differently than somebody else would. But content is very personalized, and I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that these segments are addressed uniquely. So we don't want to really treat everybody the same. In terms of, okay, you're a creator, come on board, go ahead and use the features. This is how you post. This is how you schedule. We want to make sure that specific segments are addressed, and that's why I wanted to say, based off of your last comment about the dashboard, is the dialogue's not over between creator and getter. So getter wants to know your feedback. Can the dashboard be improved at all? Right? Can we look at things in a different way? What's important to you as a podcaster in the UK may not be the same importance or relevance to somebody else who's doing it in a different field. So we want to continue that voice. We want to engage with our specific segments that we serve. We want to make sure that those features are rolled into the roadmap so we can get more people on board. And again, the whole idea is like, engagement and content is very personal to people and to the creators as well.
No, it is. It is. Um, Let me ask you about, let me throw you a curveball on
Yeah.
challenges. Now, I'm sure it's been easy, plain sailing, everything falls into place, but you might have had the odd challenge. I don't know. What's that been like? Those, I guess those roadblocks that you faced.
Well, I would say so. My tenure hasn't been very, very long here. I would say in the last couple of months, just looking at our most active creators, I think the challenge is still back to the first point. When we started out talking, which is politics. I think it's people. The misunderstanding is to say, hey, Getter is a political social media platform, and I don't believe that to be true. I think that for the most part, if you do care about free speech, if you do care about from a principled standpoint that censorship should not be happening to any accounts, unless you're doing something obviously wrong there, like promoting murder or other horrible things. For the most part, if you believe that as a principle, censorship should not exist, then this is the place where you want to be. So that transcends politics, right? If you're a health expert, like I said before, if you're in construction, if you're in real estate, all of these places, you need to realize as a person, as an individual, we want to get our voices heard, right? At the dinner table, right? At work. And so when you look at this as a whole, I think that the biggest challenge is letting people know that this is not just a platform for communication of politics and political messages. You can say whatever you want, pretty much on this platform, and you will be heard, and you won't be prioritized downward based off of your message. And that's pretty important to, I think, to most people, whether or not they say it out loud or not. Subconsciously, I think that's of importance.
But how do you balance that, I guess, free speech with responsibility as a platform? There being more focus, I think, on social media platforms. There has been the Wild West before. Now there's a lot of talk, more talk about regulation, looking what's put on. So how do you balance that desire for free speech with the responsibility that Getter has?
Yeah, that's the what do you say, $1 billion question? Not $1 million. We used to say $1 million question, back in the day.
I'm looking for
Um,
the one word answer, so you can tell us all.
but yeah, so that is the trick, right? When we look at content and free flowing content, for example, we do have to make sure that there is a fine line between saying whatever you want versus saying things that would lead to catastrophic events, right? We don't want those things to happen. But for the most part, you'll see that X has done a good job of this, and they've implemented something that I think Facebook or Meta wants to pick up on, which is the community notes feature. And that's also something that's on our roadmap as well, is to make sure that, when we look at content, it's not just us calling the shots, it's the community telling us that this is not appropriate, this could be dangerous, right? And so when we look at rolling out free speech, it still has a caveat of, let's make it constructive. Let's make sure that there's nothing dangerous that's on there. So community notes is a great idea. That's something that we will have, and that is an outsourced feature, meaning that other users on the platform will be able to come in and say, hey, this doesn't look like it's right, this is misleading, or this is questionable, and they'll be able to go ahead and vote, upvote, or provide comments to that. So you guys have seen that on X and also some other platforms as well.
Um, Let me ask you another question. I know you're a straight talking, honest person, so I'll throw this at you as well. Critics will say, "Oh, Getter or maybe other platforms like that, it's just an echo chamber. There's nobody just reiterating what you think and have it tell you back what you think." So, how do you push back against that criticism that Getter is just an echo chamber?
Well, this is a very philosophical question, right? So when you think about echo chambers, to me, it's a group of people getting together saying very similar ideas, right? And so the sometimes this is it might be kind of a temporal phenomenon as well, because if you take, for example, what when Getter launched in 2021 and everybody flocked over to the platform, you could say it was an echo chamber because very similar personalities came over. They're mostly conservatives, mostly America first, right? Those types of personalities. But if you look at the platform by principle itself, it is free speech and it should be open to a lot of different diverse views. And that's what we maintain here on Getter. It's not just a platform for America first, it's a platform for all ideas. But it just so happens temporally, that's kind of where we are today. That's where we've accumulated a lot of users. But by no means is this platform designed to be only conservative or only, you could have a lot of different topics and ideas flowing here quite freely, in my opinion.
But you must also have to, I guess, make decisions behind the scenes, and I guess the team of me had to decide to make a stand, not necessarily easy, on where that limits either, I guess, put the foot in the brake or put the foot harder on the accelerator. So how, I guess, as the team, you do have to make a stand and put the line somewhere.
Yeah, I think you do, and I think there are examples. Historically, this is what I've heard. We've been pressured to do something about posts that seem to be a little bit too extreme, but I think we've held our ground historically around that. It's not an easy thing, right? Because you're trying to keep the peace, you're trying to make things open for everybody. There's always going to be somebody that comes in and tries to ruffle your feathers or push the limits of what's there. So you will see that we do push back on things that are very extreme and things that just are not appropriate and could infer an ounce of danger or more than an ounce of danger for the larger community. But for the most part, you won't see that. But again, I'm not saying these are easy decisions by any means. They're very difficult because again, we do respect freedom of speech and we don't want to censor. But again, we look after the safety of the community at the same time.
We talked about one or two things. I mentioned the analytics, the data board. I think that's great and informative for content creators. I know it's always had longer posts where some other have had restrictions here and there. The
Mhm.
live stream studio, I think, is great. And that earlier on, you talked about data and being creator driven and not data driven. But I mean, let us know about other me innovations or features, either expand on those, but other ones that are coming together that you looking into or excited about.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's really, again, if you think about being a creator, you yourself being one of them, Getter has not formally launched anything around monetization yet, but that is the next thing around the corner that I think. And I always tell the team, it's like if you make it easier for creators to make money, the rest is easy, right, for everybody else. It's all about helping people reach more people, more of an audience, increase the engagement, and also if their messaging is good, then they should be rewarded for that. So that's the monetization aspect is going to be all about making sure that posts when there's engagement that's measured on the back end, and then you would be able to be rewarded as a creator for more engagement. That's a very simple concept, but in practice, it's very valuable because that is what creates your community. The more creators we have in a community, the more content we have. The more content we have, the more people will tend to come over and take a look at that content and value that content. So it's a self-reinforcing wheel that I think is positive. So monetization itself is down in the pipeline. Those features are going to be there, but also when you talk about reach, and this is why I think we go back. Originally, GETTR, as you know, the slogan was marketplace of ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so now the slogan I think we're going to be working with is more of a global voice type of slogan, and global voices uncensored is where we want to take this company. And so when we look at how we do that, one of the great ways to be able to hit more of that global market is to use AI. So one example of a feature that would be useful, I think, to a lot of creators is how can I reach a more global audience? Currently, 80% of our accounts are still based in the Americas. And so that 20% we want to actually expand out. One of the ways we're going to do that with AI is to have the ability for any kind of content to be instantly translated into various languages. So imagine you're a newscaster or a citizen journalist, right? And you've got something that's breaking in DC you want to share with everybody. Well, you're doing it in English, right? But then at the same time, what GETTR will help you do is turn your voice, in your actual voice, into Italian, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, all of that. So all of a sudden, you have shrunk the window of time it takes for somebody across the world to reach your message. So all of a sudden, as a citizen journalist, you're not just broadcasting to anybody who speaks English. All of a sudden, you've hit 14 different languages, and everybody can see very quickly what's happening where you're reporting. So I think these are just some of the examples. I think more of the AI incorporation you'll see in all of our features. Some of the ones I think are really cool is like if you think about being a creator, imagine the ability to host a private event online using our wonderful live streaming functions. And so you can actually invite people into that private event. You can have the private event actually be a ticketed event where you can charge for it. And so the monetization features from subscriptions to private events to just engagement rewards are going to be a powerful change in the right direction for this GETTR platform.
And then I guess those are, as you're planning features ahead, you're also looking ahead where you want GETTR to be, kind of where you maybe have thoughts of where the whole industry may be, and then where GETTR fits into that. So kind of as you look ahead, how do you see the evolution of this space and of GETTR in the future?
Yeah, so I think most people agree that AI is now an inevitable part of our lives, right? I think for my personal experience, I'm consulting ChatGPT or Grok at least a couple times a day on different ideas. So there's a lot of that that I think the future is definitely going to be impacted by AI in a positive way. The future is also going to be decentralized, not decentralized meaning like GETTR is going to turn into GETTR Brazil, GETTR US, GETTR China, not like that. But what we're going to do as a company is we're going to push the power back down to the people. So making users have more of the ability to control their own content, to edit it, to sell it, things like that. So all of that, where you say, hey, somebody on the top is controlling, now everybody who's in the platform gets more controls, more variation, more creation. And that's what I mean by decentralization there. And then the third thing I think is going to be important 3 to 5 years is a lot of what you see, and this happened, I think, started happening really quickly during the pandemic, which is content and even news in particular, started to become creator driven. And it wasn't so much a network telling you what was fact or fiction, right? You have all these people reporting in different channels that were never really newscasters before, but they had some, useful information to share with the public. So I think in the future, 3 to 5 years, you're going to see an acceleration of the creator-led space, which is just a lot of creation by independent creators and things that will now come to light, whereas before it was is really centralized around mainstream media and legacy media.
Yeah, and individuals on the alternative side are more nimble, respond much quicker to
Hmm.
things. And you often see social media reporting stuff, and then the legacy media an hour later suddenly come out with a breaking story, and it's no longer breaking. You're far
Yeah, that's
behind.
right. That's right.
But how do you, I guess it's with a team, you want the team to have creativity. That is essential to building a product, a company, especially in the media space. So you want that creativity, but I guess you also need a focus. The more ideas, the better. But then I guess you need to take some and actually move on. You can't just have I guess, a whiteboard and just keep producing thoughts and or now we need to take this. So how do you, I guess, keep the team focused on what is important, what is essential, and make sure you're moving together as a unified team.
Yeah, that's a great question because I think especially with software or tech heavy or tech focused companies, I should say, this is an issue, right? You've got a lot of good ideas, and they're not all coming from internal. The users are giving us all these ideas, but how do you sift and filter and prioritize these ideas to make them actually become a reality? And so I think it's important that we focus around the mission, which is creator empowerment and also free speech. So if we focus on just those two things and we revolve a lot of our priorities around those, I think we won't get what do they call it in developer world? It's scope creep, right? When you have kind of this expanding scope of things you want to work on, but not necessarily the amount of resources to support that. But I think it's not going to be a very difficult thing because I think the industry is moving in that direction, which is they're trying to figure out ways to reward creators. I think X is due to launch something this year with collaboration with Visa around tokens and things like that. So I think that as long as when I say we, I mean the industry of platforms that is focused on helping people spread the message. As long as we are focused on creator empowerment and also making sure that free speech is at the top of the mission statement, there, I think we'll be good to go. We won't have scope creep.
I want to get back on the creator side, because I mentioned earlier one of the things I like the creator driven side and not the data driven side. And I think the data driven side of X will leave individuals feeling a little bit powerless and empty and not thinking they're in control. And I guess the creators they build their brand or whatever, they want to know that their voice matters and they're in control. So I mean, how do you looking at creators and communities and the focus on that that GETTR have that maybe some other platforms don't? Kind of yeah, how do you see that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind around that is, and I think this is still true. I haven't checked recently, but there is a very high bar to get rewarded on X. I'm not trying to call out X. I love X as a platform, but this is just what we see and what users are telling us. You have to have, I guess, what is it, 5 million impressions or something like that to even qualify for one of their benchmarks to be recognized. So we're not looking at those kinds of things here at GETTR. We think that the bar to actually get rewarded by users is going to be very low, or non-existent. So we want people to be rewarded almost instantaneously for putting out good content. You're not going to be, again, this is back to the whole algorithm and shadow banning thing. We're not going to judge you based off of the size of your account. As long as you're putting out good content and people will see that on the feed, they can go in and start rewarding you, and that's part of the monetization there. So I think that's one of the things I think is really important, is to make it monetization more accessible for more people on the platform, and not just saying, hey, if you're a big account, you get rewarded. If you're a small account, you'll pretty much never get there until you have X million number of followers or impressions.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've talked to people who have nearly 1 billion impressions on X in a month, and I was surprised how little they're getting. Because if you have that, it's a whole team. It's not just an individual, but the money wouldn't actually pay for that. But that's a
That's a
bigger
yeah.
area. Yeah.
There's the economy bit too. Yeah, I think it's things are. I mean, things are looking bright. I think in terms of this space, because again, you never would have imagined. All you need is maybe a mobile phone, a good idea, and all of a sudden you can start making money. on it, right? In theory. So now I think what we want to do as a platform, Getter is dedicated to this, is how can we make that easier for everybody? So I'm not saying that X is this way or Rumble is another way, but any vendor that you work with and you've produced good results for, they should be paying you your fair share, and also in a timely manner, right? You shouldn't have to wait, months before you get paid. But that's my question that I have to ask myself, and how we as a team can help creators is, how can we get you guys paid more for all the good things you're doing, and how can I get you paid faster?
Rich, some people may be watching this on all different platforms, thinking, well, I actually never jumped in together, or goodness, I think I had a Getter quite a long time ago. And
Mhm.
they're maybe thinking, well, I should give it a go. I should jump in and try. Where should they start?
Well, I have some good news for you guys, and especially the ones that are new. We just released an express sign up feature. And what that means is you can actually get started with Getter with a simple click on your mobile phone. So all you got to do is, whether you're on the Apple ecosystem or on Android, you can download the app, and then it's really literally just one click. It'll go ahead and create the username profile for you and everything. You can get started looking at all the content on Getter. So now it's easier than ever to do that. We want it to be as frictionless as possible. Again, think from the creator perspective. If I'm a creator and I want users to jump on board and see the stuff that I'm posting on Getter, I want them to come on board as quickly as possible, right? I don't want to bother them with username, birth date, like all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we created Express Sign Up for Getter, is to make sure that our creators are getting users as quickly as possible.
I think for me, it's a case of just jumping on, whether you're a creator, whether you're just an individual and don't see yourself as that, whether you see yourself as independent media, all the features are there, whether you're doing video content, whether you're just reposting stories, whether you're engaging with friends. Um, it's kind of become um, normal how to use social media. You don't have to explain the ABCs. But I think for
Right.
me, wherever people are on the spectrum of engagement or areas they cover, that Getter seems to have it. So for me, it's just a suggestion of jump in and feel your way around and see how it works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I would say Peter's got a great channel. I think there's a lot of newer creators as well that are joining as well. Just check out their channel. Engage if you want. If it's interesting, engage. I mean, don't never. We don't like bots that end up on the platform, and that's always been a problem with any social media platform. But we want true, authentic engagement. So if you do find somebody's content interesting, just give them a thumbs up, right? Give a little comment. And so I didn't mention this. Maybe we mentioned this on the last call, Peter, but there was somebody who did an independent study. We had no idea that they went out and did this, but it was somebody who was an editor on Substack. So the name of the Substack channel, I think, is Positive Pen. So you can look him up. The gentleman actually did a test where he posted on 6 or 7 different platforms, and measured engagement, I think, across the platforms over a course of 5 or 6 weeks. And what he noticed was very interesting. So Getter being one of them, X, Rumble, Substack, a couple of other ones. But at the end of 5 to 6 weeks, he noticed that the highest engagement was still on Getter and also Substack. Right? You wouldn't have thought that, but that's kind of what happens, I guess, when you create an environment where people feel like, there's no censorship, and that you can post what you want on there, and hear a true voice. So yeah, I would just say, like, I think that's it. I mean, that's important to have as a platform. So we welcome everybody to come on board and get started with Getter, and shoot me a message if you want to as well. I will kind of plug something here. We are growing the team as well, because we're serious about getting creators more users. So if you guys are interested in joining the Getter team, you can also reach out to me as well on the platform. I will be entertaining those dialogues as well.
Well, I was gonna finish off with on how to follow what you're doing, connect together, because I think sometimes you can be on a social media platform and you're very disconnected. You kind of have your circle, and I've certainly found with Getter, it's got really good engagement. And I say the more you engage and get involved, then the more engagement you get. And I've always found Getter to be up there more than a number of other platforms. But yeah, I think you saying kind of people to reach out is important, because people go on and they want to be able to connect with the platform itself, and often that's near on impossible. But I think with Getter, you make it easier.
That's right, and with 8 million active users, I think that's the thing. It's easier, but we want that number to grow. We're gonna have challenges growing a user base as well as we do this, but we recognize those things, and I think, but this core base of active users is gonna be one I think that will really reward its creators. When you guys come on board, you'll see people looking around. They'll check your channel out, and you guys will get rewarded for the engagement you get. But the other thing is it is growing. It truly is growing. Growing pains, like I mentioned before, that they're going to be there. We see them every day, but the growth right now, I think we're registering. I think when I spoke with somebody, it was about 120,000 new active accounts every month. So that is a new high for us, actually, and that actually hit right soon after we launched the express sign up. So it made a lot of the signups easier, but 120 new accounts per month. And so this platform is definitely growing, and we want it to grow the right way for sure. But we depend on all you guys to come on board and help us out with that.
Well, Rich, thanks very much for joining us today, and I hope you don't get 8 million resumes. I hope not.
Well, we'll work through those. Actually, even if we did get 8 million resumes, maybe ChatGPT can filter those out for us at some point. But no, we appreciate it, and thank you so much, Peter. I know you've been a huge supporter of Getter from the get go, and all of your audience as well. So we welcome everybody to come try out Getter for the first time. If you've been here before on the platform, come back and take a look. There are a lot of new features rolling out every week, every 2 weeks, I should say, is the schedule. So we're excited.
No, thanks, Rich, and I'm sure we'll have you back in the future with some of those many specific features. You can jump on and give us an update. So thanks so much for your time today.